This is Octagon Tech. Experience the future of education with Octagon, where learning meets accessibility and affordability. Welcome you all to our EdTech podcast. Our episode today is about renewing minds, with particular focus on transformative role of virtual and augmented reality in student mental health. Our guest today is JD Kabuka. Welcome, JD, to our podcast. Will you please start by telling us, our audience, who is JD?
Well, thank you for having me here today. My name is JD Gakuba, also known as Mr. G, at Salk Elementary, Tulsa Public Schools, where I teach science, social studies, work to read, which is reading innovation and writing workshop to all the fifth graders. I am also a doctoral student at Oral Roberts University, Grad School of Education, where I'm currently trying to start an academic research on meta-analytic study of the effect of unmedicated mental health on college students' life. But before I came to live to Tulsa, I lived in Congo, my country in Africa, and worked in Rwanda for most of my professional life and founded Octagon, an EdTech innovation hub. And before I did that, I had the honor to participate in the Geneva International Labour Conference, the 105th version of it, where employers from all over the world, employers organization, convene to talk about the future of work. And also in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where I participated in the Young African Thinkers Convention, where I was requested to take lead on the theme of how education and technology will transform Africa. That has given me an opportunity to see the world from different angles, even as I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, as a student and as also an elementary school teacher.
Well, we're so pleased to have you with us today. Let's dive into our topic. What do you think is the role of virtual and augmented reality in student mental health?
As a teacher today at Salk Elementary and founder of Octagon, and with that plethora of experience from different parts of the world, I have seen firsthand how acute mental health, myself being a person who have had to deal with acute mental health of all kinds, like ADHD, autism, PTSD, and only to name but a few, how these mental health challenges can derail learning. But talking of VR and AR, virtual reality and augmented reality, I see it as an opportunity that can offer lifelines to the students across the board, students in K-12, students in college, all the way to more careers, how this will affect their lives and affect their experiences in school, even after school. And also looking at tech and how it can provide an opportunity to tackle this issue in a very innovative way. And as far as this issue is concerned, I want to say that immersive tech isn't just futuristic, it's transformational. VR and AR represent more than just an innovation, but an avenue for transformation. They are cutting-edge tools reshaping education today. And I want at this point to bring in a passage from the Bible in the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2, in the B part of it, that goes this way: Be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. This is a verse that brings us to a point where we are tasked to continuously seek to renew our mind, seek to renew our thinking to renew our perspectives, think of renewing even our perceptions and the way we do things in such a way that leads us to a point where we are able to grasp, to apprehend what is acceptable to God, and that sense of perfection that can only come from God. It is a task ahead of us that we need to take up and find a way and continue on that way until we grasp that perfection that always seems to be elusive. And as educators, Christian educators, we are called to help students renew their minds, especially those battling mental health challenges. which has become a reality in this century, which I believe also is going not to increase but to multiply. In 2025, virtual reality isn't just a tech trend. It's a lifeline for students with ADHD, PTSD, autism, the entire spectrum, and all other forms of mental health that we may not be able to explore right now. VR could potentially also revolutionize the social and emotional learning across the board, like I said earlier, in the pre-K to 12, all the way to college. With VR, we can equip this young generation with attitude and aptitude they need to thrive, not just to thrive. Not just to survive, I mean.
Amazing. As a classroom teacher and innovator, could you give us any scenario or case studies?
Sure, that's even more practical. As we dive into the matter, I want to start this first of all with a disclaimer that the case scenarios I'm going to bring up are not real cases. But that doesn't mean necessarily that those case scenarios did not derive from real experiences I've had as a teacher, as an innovator, as a person who's been in different parts of the world and have had an opportunity to look at life from different walk of life and different vantage points. I will take 5 different cases that can all appear in one classroom. The possibility for them to appear or to surface or to influence or affect the classroom moment is real. I will take case number 1. This is a very high level ADHD. A student with an ADHD problem, which is on a high level. A student who struggles with focus and impulse control. That student is in your class day in, day out. Case study number 2, or case scenario if you wish, number 2 is an extreme autism. Extreme autism, we see the spectrum and somebody somewhere on the extreme part of it. This student has difficulty with social cues and sensory overload. And you have another third case scenario with an advanced and untreated PTSD. This student has problems with triggers from loud noises and crowded spaces. He or she cannot stand a big crowd of people around him or her and cannot stand the loud voices because it triggers a behavior that is out of control. No human being capacity is able to bring him or her down in an atmosphere where learning or instruction can flow. Case number 4 is an unidentified mental health case. This is something untreated, undiagnosed, unknown. I like to call it the mental case X. The mental case X. This is a student with extreme disengagement and emotional withdrawal and incredible uncontrollable mood swings. He or she is happy today, tomorrow you do not know, or the next hour swings to the other side of things. He or she is constantly on an emotional and experiential seesaw. You don't know how to grab him. When you want to grab him on this side, he's on the other side. A very extreme case to control in a classroom environment. Case scenario number 5, last but also critically important, is a mixture of PTSD and ADHD. ADHD comorbidity. This is a chaotic behavior compounded by trauma. All the PTSD and ADHD and the trauma that goes with it becomes very impossible. And as a teacher, you find yourself in a situation where if you focus on redirecting these behaviors in a positive way, it actually ends up being a negative environment because between 60% and 80% of your time is spent actually fixing behaviors than creating the teaching and learning moment. And before you know, you are not meeting your goals as a teacher and you're not helping them reach their goals as learners. And before you start counting, you're actually failing as a teacher and there's no teaching and learning going on.
That's very fascinating. Expand more on that thought.
Well, I would expand more that bringing in a little bit of key statistics and researches that have been done, actually the latest statistics that we have. Newport Academy, in one of their resources called with this topic, virtual reality therapy for teens, published in 2025, it says 1 in 5 US students face acute mental health struggles, yet only 20% receive care. Shows how the question is real. And then it goes on to say untreated ADHD causes students 3 times more academic setbacks by high school. And if you say by high school, that means if by high school they are untreated, these are the same people the high school is going to feed into college. And the college life, one way or the other, will be affected. There's no two ways to it. One way or the other. I should actually say college life will absolutely be affected. And I would want you to imagine a child with PTSD disassociating during a fire drill, or a student with autism overwhelmed by cafeteria noise. Traditional method often miss this kid. It cannot tackle the problem of these kids, but VR creates safe and renewed spaces.
Well, Mr. G, can you please tell our audience in what sense VR is practical?
Absolutely. That's a very practical question, because if VR is not practical, then it's of no use at all. Let's be a little bit practical with in what ways VR can be put into action and actually be practically used to provide the solutions. I give you 5 scenarios, and I will try to find the solutions to those 5 case scenarios using VR and AR. Let's start with extreme ADHD. With extreme ADHD, you can take, let's say, a program called the Focus Forest. With the Focus Forest, and this can be found on filament.com. It's a blog with VR for social emotional learning. It provides enough, and there's an updated article that can dive into more and provide more that I can probably not bring up today. But with the Focus Forest, this student will have access to a gamified VR task of collecting focus points in a virtual rainforest. And this research has revealed, and this is a research by PMC NCBI of 2025 with this title, Bringing Virtual Reality to Mainstream Pediatric Care. It says that this gamified task of collecting focus points in a virtual rainforest has reduced hyperactivity by 40%. And if you look at that and try to link it to a scripture that we read, transformation. This is something, if it can affect students' hyperactivity by 40%, it means if we add more effort in it, the percentage would even go higher. We'll go to a case of autism. Look at the spectrum and say, what can we do with VR for an autism spectrum that is that high? What would you do? VR will bring in a social simulation lab. With these labs, where you have a classroom, a VR classroom, which is a virtual cafeteria that lets students practice ordering food. With AI adjusting dialogue complexity, there's a whole lot of dialogue complexity, there's noise, there's a little bit of disorder, and you are practicing as a student with autism how to order your food because you need your food. It has shown that these social simulation labs have affected the student, have improved student actually by 50% in picking up social cues after 8 sessions. Research showed that after 8 sessions, they were able to pick up those social cues after just practicing social sessions. This also can be available on govtech.com, Education K-12, and it has this title. I liked it when I was reading it. It says, what could AR and VR do for social and emotional learning? Which I actually do almost every day in my classroom before I start my single lesson, because I have a time in the morning. Before I start a single lesson in the morning with my homeroom, although the 5th graders come to me, I have to start with my homeroom and have a morning meeting with them. And every morning meeting has social emotional learning. It is in the curriculum, you follow it, but you try to make it real and something they can relate to, like when you're bringing about social awareness and self-awareness and all the other things that fall into the category of social emotional learning. So if I can have something that will have a 50% impact on improving on how to pick social cues, it would make a big difference in that classroom. And the case of PTSD and trauma, that mixture of it, has a safety problem to it. But VR has something. It has a safe space exploration. It's called Helium VR Mental Hygiene Station that uses biofeedback. It guides students, or let's say clients, if we may call them clients, it guides them in breathing exercise. These breathing exercises have proven to lower anxiety by 60%. The same research provides insight in how those breathing exercises, just breathing in and out, taking that deep breath in a whole different environment with your VR on your head, you're in a whole world, and this whole new world that is not the social setting that you're in the classroom, but the virtual reality is helping you to breathe in and out. And as you do that, after doing the research didn't mention how many times the kids talked about 8 times on improving, picking up social cues, but it says 60% of the student were able, not the student, it was able to reduce anxiety by 60%. So after VR session, student would stop hiding under desk or when there's noise or trying to withdraw or something like that. For our audience, you can look it up on Washington Town School Foundation in their 2025 research on VR for social emotional learning. It has this very interesting topic, developing social emotional skills with virtual reality. Let me come back to the X, unknown, unidentified, untreated, undiagnosed case, the X case, which is an extreme emotional regulation challenge. Let's say, I don't have the capacity to say which mental health case it is because it's a professional thing that people who have the training and the certification to say what kind of bipolar disorder that is, what kind of disorder it is, but let's say it's a bipolar disorder. VR would create a mindfulness environment by virtually painting on cliffs with Aloe VR. Aloe VR is like real aloe, but it's just VR, and helps students identify mood shifts. When the moods are shifting to this side, they're able to identify that and pick themselves up and if I keep this high, I'm going to affect the rest of the classroom and all that, which is also has proven to make a very big difference. So there's a whole lot of science behind this whole transformation we are bringing on the table. Stanford study, a recent Stanford study shows that VR learners feel 75 times more emotionally connected to social and emotional content than traditional methods. You will find that on the same website, the Filament Game, with this title, VR for Social Emotional Learning. Also, PwC research of recent shows that trauma-informed VR simulation improved decision-making skills by 4 times in higher stress scenarios. In high stress scenarios, the decision-making skills were improved by 4 times. And then we have a meta-analysis of immersive virtual reality boost learning outcome by 111% compared to textbooks. That's what tech has for you. The renewal is right there. VR lets students rewire neural pathways through experiential learning, aligning with Paul's call in Romans 12 for transformation.
Amazing, JD. That was really great insight. Let's get into some of the issues of equity and implementation of those incredible solutions. How do you address this issue?
Well, you just said it. Exactly what you mentioned by equity? Equity becomes a very, very big issue. Let's look into those real challenges that one way or the other will affect VR being implemented, especially in underserved schools or colleges that are underfunded or who seek funds to improve other areas that are critical to the development of the students, but not necessarily in VR. So there's a cost barrier. The modular VR kits, for example, Exxon Training Pod, the cost goes high by 70% in underserved schools. In any inner city school across the United States of America, if we just limit our scope to the United States of America, we'll have the cost go by 70%. So you'd wonder, who is willing to invest in that? So there's a lot of need to call people to attention and raise awareness and have people invest more, give back to their community to sort of prevent the future to be a mayhem, that will be marred by untreated mental health. Also, for educators like myself, all the other educators, be it in elementary, be it in middle school, be it in high school, be it even in college, are we able to diagnose these behaviors even at the level of freshmen? Or we just allow people to come and move on, expect them to follow and keep them up to the academic expectations. Yet, those academic expectations cannot be met if the human beings who are carrying out, who are doing the work, are not safe and sound to move on. So there's a lot of awareness, teacher training, faculty training. At the level of Octagon as an innovator, I look at our PD programs that will train educators to interpret VR analytics, those analytics that will provide teachers with personalized innovations. Because one innovation may work for one specific group of people with mental health issues, but not necessarily everyone. Because every case has its own kind. There's a lot that has to be involved, and it's a lot of professional training and professional development and creating awareness.
Well, it looks like our time is coming to an end. Let's hear some of your final thoughts.
Well, it's felt like a short time, but this is really something I truly care about. VR labs, if implemented strategically and equitably, would serve, this is a personal research, a minimum of 50 and plus students weekly in any school. Let's pick up a Tulsa marginalized community. If there's a marginalized community, or let's say an underserved school somewhere, if this is implemented in a school, it can serve up to 50 students in a week. Imagine how much transformation that would bring about. And students will go from daily meltdowns to actually mentoring their peers using VR mindfulness. That's transformation. Transformation is right here in our face. So friends, these kids are not broken. They are just waiting for tools for renewal, for transformation of their mind, and an opportunity for regeneration. When we equip them with VR immersive social-emotional learning, we're not just preventing college dropout. We are raising resilient leaders who will know their worth, who will grab their future and pursue their dreams and be better citizens. Let's build classrooms where every child can prove what is good and perfect will of God.
Thank you, Mr. G, for your great insight. And thank you, dear audience. Until next time, keep transforming.